When an HOA president crosses the line by sending 100 cows to destroy my orchard, she thought she was teaching me a lesson. But what she didn't know was that I was about to turn the tables, take her down in court, and seize her community's entire reserve fund. This is the shocking story of how revenge, legal strategy, and a little patience can turn the tables in the most unexpected way. Stay tuned. The morning Karen tried to destroy my orchard started like any other peaceful morning. In the valley, mist still floated between the rows of apple trees, and the sunlight was just beginning to warm the grass. I had owned that land for 12 years. 12 years of pruning branches, repairing irrigation lines, planting saplings, and watching them grow into full trees heavy with fruit. For me, the orchard wasn't just land. It was my life's work. I was checking irrigation pipes when I heard the distant rumble of engines. At first, I thought it was farm traffic from the neighboring fields, but the sound grew louder and stranger. Trucks, several of them. When I walked toward the road, what I saw made me stop cold. 5 cattle trucks were pulling up to the gate of my orchard. Behind them stood Karen. Everyone in the county knew Karen. She was the president of the newly formed Willow Creek Homeowners Association. A neighborhood of freshly built suburban homes had gone up 2 miles away, and Karen had quickly crowned herself queen of the HOA. The problem was, my orchard existed long before those houses. Karen hated it. She said the tractors were too noisy, the fertilizer smelled unpleasant, and worst of all, she believed farmland lowered the EVB, property value of her precious HOA. For months she had sent letters demanding I sell the land to a developer. For months I ignored her. So Karen decided to escalate. She stood at my gate wearing oversized sunglasses and holding a clipboard like she was running a military operation. Behind her stood 2 ranch hands beside the trucks. And inside those trucks, cows. A lot of cows. I walked down the dirt path toward the gate. Karen smiled. That smug smile people wear when they think they've already won. "Well, good morning," she said loudly. "Perfect day for a lesson." "What are you doing on my property?" I asked. "Oh, I'm not," she said quickly. "Technically, the road easement belongs to the county. We're completely within our rights." One of the ranch hands looked uncomfortable. Karen continued. "You see, we've received complaints from residents about agricultural runoff affecting the neighborhood." "That's nonsense." "Maybe," she shrugged. "But we decided to demonstrate what real agricultural impact looks like." She snapped her fingers. "Open the gates!" Before I could react, the ranch hands lifted the truck ramps, and then chaos poured out. Cows, dozens of them, large, muddy, confused cattle stormed down the ramps and straight through the open orchard. "Gate!" I ran forward shouting, "Stop! Stop!" But cows don't stop once they start moving. They spread across the orchard like a living avalanche. Hooves pounded through irrigation lines, branches snapped, young trees bent and broke. One massive steer plowed straight into a row of 3-year-old apple trees I had planted the previous spring. My stomach dropped. Karen watched the destruction like it was a parade. "Looks like agriculture is messy," she said. I pulled out my phone. Karen laughed. "Oh, please. What are you going to do? Call the police because cows exist?" I wasn't calling the police. I was recording every cow, every truck, every ranch hand, and most importantly, Karen. She was still talking. "Maybe once you see what livestock does to land, you'll realize orchards don't belong near modern communities." I zoomed the camera on her face. "You ordered this?" I asked. "Of course I did." "Perfect." 20 minutes later, the cows had destroyed nearly 3 acres of trees. 3 acres I had spent years growing. Karen finally clapped her hands. "All right, boys, load them back up." The ranch hands started gathering the cattle. Karen gave me one last smile. "Think about selling the land," she said. "You clearly can't manage it." Then she drove away. That afternoon I walked through the orchard. Broken branches, crushed irrigation pipes, bark stripped from trees that would never recover. The damage estimate I made that night came to nearly $180,000. Some trees would take 7 years to replace. I didn't sleep much, but I did make 3 phone calls. The first was to my lawyer, the second was to the county agricultural commissioner, and the third was to a friend who happened to work in livestock transport licensing. 3 days later, my lawyer and I began digging. Karen had made one huge mistake. Actually, several. First mistake, she ordered the cattle delivery through the HOA account. Second mistake, the HOA had signed a written contract with the rancher. Third mistake, the HOA board never voted on it, which meant Karen had authorized the operation herself, using HOA funds, without board approval. But the biggest mistake? Those cattle were transported across county lines without the required agricultural permits, which made the entire stunt illegal. Very illegal. My lawyer smiled when he saw the I-by-Chubb paperwork. This is better than I hoped. 2 weeks later, Karen received the lawsuit. Trespassing, agricultural destruction, property damage, livestock negligence, and unauthorized use of HOA funds. The total damages we requested? $420,000. Karen went ballistic. She posted on the HOA Facebook page claiming I was harassing the community. She said the cows were part of a symbolic demonstration. She even tried to claim the orchard trees were already dying. Unfortunately for Karen, trees have records. Crop insurance inspections, agricultural reports, photos, drone footage, years of documentation. Every tree had proof of health. Karen's lawyer tried to negotiate. My lawyer declined. Then the IB discovery phase began. That's when things got really bad for Karen. Emails surfaced. Lots of them. Messages where Karen bragged about teaching the farmer a lesson. Messages where she told HOA members she would force the orchard owner to sell. And my personal favorite message she sent to a board member, once the trees are damaged, he won't have a choice. That email alone destroyed her defense. But there was something even better. The HOA Reserve Fund. Every HOA keeps money set aside for maintenance, emergencies, and community repairs. Karen had used part of that fund to pay for the cattle trucks, which meant HOA members themselves had unknowingly funded the destruction of my property. When the board discovered that, panic erupted. The HOA immediately tried to distance themselves from Karen, but legally it was too late. Karen was acting as HOA president, which meant the HOA shared liability. 4 months later, we arrived in court. Karen looked confident when the hearing started. That confidence lasted about 15 minutes. First, we showed the video of cows flooding my orchard. Then we showed Karen on camera admitting she ordered it. Then came the emails. The courtroom got very quiet. Finally, the agricultural inspector testified. He explained how the cattle transport violated multiple livestock regulations. By the time my lawyer finished, Karen looked pale. Her attorney requested settlement negotiations the next day. The HOA board was furious. Most of them hadn't even known Karen planned the stunt. Their reserve fund held $380,000. And suddenly, they were about to lose it. 2 weeks later, the settlement agreement was finalized. The HOA insurance refused to cover the damages because Karen's actions were intentional, which meant payment had to come directly from HOA assets, including the reserve fund. Karen was forced to resign immediately. The HOA paid $365,000 in damages, nearly their entire reserve fund. The money arrived in 3 installments. I used it to rebuild the orchard. New irrigation, new saplings, stronger fencing, and security cameras. Lots of cameras. Meanwhile, Karen's T2 reputation collapsed. The HOA members were furious she had nearly bankrupted their community. A recall vote removed her permanently from the board. Last I heard, Karen moved away 6 months later, probably to start trouble somewhere else. But the orchard? It recovered. Young trees are growing again where the cows once ran wild. And every time I walk those rows, I remember something my lawyer said after the case ended. He leaned back in his chair and laughed. "You know," he said, "most people sue for damages. You sued and took their war chest." He was right. Karen wanted to teach me a lesson. In the end, she funded the rebuilding of the very orchard she tried to destroy.